thank you for giving me the opportunity to interview you outside of Millwall Football Club 48 hours after there was a booing incident that has now become...
Disgusting incident.
But before we go into a proper interview, tell me more about who Spencer is.
Well, Spencer, Anthony Spencer, my full name. To be honest, I took this fight up after George Floyd. So you want to know who the real Anthony Spencer is. There's an Anthony Spencer before George Floyd, there's an Anthony Spencer after George Floyd, put it that way. And Anthony Spencer after George Floyd is laser focused on seeing what I can do personally in conjunction with everybody else who's thinking along the same lines of getting rid of what we saw at the weekend and the systemic racism that we have in this country. So this is like it's not a hobby, it's a mission for me. I'm also part of the Million People movement with two other members. We're different. One member's different now to what we was when we first came across you, as you know. And I'm also the host of The Full 100 on YouTube, which deals with all these types of situations. So anyone who sees this, please go to YouTube and hit the subscribe button and stay focused and stay informed on what we on the fights.
Tell me more about your link between your organisation, the Million People March,
Million People Movement.
The Million People Movement, I beg your pardon, and Black Lives Matter. What's the link?
We have the same agenda, and I'll explain that. Black Lives Matter, I know, have evolved since 2012-13 when it first started in the US, have one mission, and that's to get rid of systemic racism, bring equality back into our legal and justice system, housing systems, health systems, and basically see what we can do to make the lives of minorities better.
Let's talk specifically about what happened at this football club on Saturday. So let's get some background information for those who don't know. So on Saturday, Millwall Football Club opened for the first time after COVID, but also for us,
after George Floyd.
So George Floyd was murdered in America on the 25th of May 2020, and the match which took place here with Derby on Saturday was the first occasion that 2,000 fans were permitted into the ground, and players and officials took to their knees, and some fans, not all, some fans started to boo. What did the symbolic taking of the knee mean to you?
The taking of the knee, can I be honest?
Yes.
Is useless.
Why is it useless?
It's useless because of what you saw on Saturday. It means nothing to these people. It means nothing to them. There is no accountability. Before we take the knee for the next 12 months, we have an initiative that I'm going to talk about before the end of this interview, because taking the knee, Mike, is a bit like taking a feather to attack a wild dog. Okay? It's a bit like taking a feather to attack a wild dog that's about to attack you. You need to pick up a hammer and protect yourself against a wild animal trying to attack you. What we're doing is we're taking feathers to these monsters and these uncivilized people. And that's why, in my opinion, taking the knee is useless.
But hold on, let's get it clear. You know, Street Mike likes to be devil's advocate. When you're talking about monsters and uncivilized people,
racism is uncivilized.
You cannot be referring to every single fan that was inside of this ground.
I didn't say that. We're referring to those who booed, yes?
Yes.
Okay, that's who I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the civilized folk who respected those who were kneeling. I'm talking about the uncivilized, uncultured animals who felt the need to boo. That's who I'm talking about. Now, taking feathers to those sorts of animals doesn't work. Hence, I'm telling you, although I appreciate that they feel like this is the most they can do, and it's a sad, sad world where many footballers have had a reason to walk off the pitch, but not one of them has ever done it. Many footballers have had a reason many managers have had a reason to pull their whole team off the pitch. None of them has ever done it. These are the types of action that make a difference, but we don't do it. But then we take a knee, which is the smallest, the weakest, if you like, that action we can take. And yet these animals that we saw at the weekend still have something to say to us. And that's why I think it's useless. It's time we take a hammer to this, and we are asking for an initiative called Stop January.
Hold on, before we get there, Street Mike is leading debate, and you know I like to be devil's advocate. I will permit you to talk about the initiative in January at the right time, but I'm staying focused. But let's go back to the booing. What did booing mean to you, and why?
The booing was racism at its ugliest.
Why? Why was it racism?
Let me explain something, Mike.
Please do.
Like you just said, Saturday was the first time fans were allowed back in the stadium, okay? We all know the reason they're booing is because the whole world, 7 billion, maybe just less people in the world, saw a human being's life snuffed out in slow motion. It took 8 minutes and 49 or so seconds to kill this human being who was crying for his mother. Everybody and their uncle understands that the kneeing is a statement in solidarity, a statement for fairness, for justice. So in my opinion, those section of that crowd that decided to boo were definitely showing their support for the opposite of what these guys were kneeling for. And what's the opposite, Mike, of what these guys was kneeling for? White supremacy. What's the opposite of what these guys was kneeling for? Injustice. What's the opposite to what these guys were kneeling for? Racism. So if you're booing a group of people who are standing up for the right cause, then you must be you must be cheering for the wrong cause. And that's why it's racism. At its worst. And this is why the Race Offenders Register would deal with that sort of a situation.
Let's talk about
the club and the fans.
Let's talk about the Race Offenders Register at the appropriate time. But going back specifically, I'm now going to give you an alternative position that may explain why fans were booing.
Okay.
On Saturday, it was the first occasion that so many fans had the opportunity to come to Millwall Football Club to watch a game.
Okay.
There was a lockdown, there was all different things.
Yeah,
this is the
people were
first
frustrated,
time
so people were happy to be at the game. I get that.
So isn't it a possibility that the reasons people were booing was because they came to watch a match and the match had not started? Yes or no?
Are you asking me if that was a valid reason?
Yes.
If they had a valid reason to boo because they were waiting for the match to start?
That's correct.
Mike, how long do they kneel for?
Very short periods of time.
Approximately how long?
30 seconds?
Less than that, don't they? 30 seconds. You're trying to tell me that all the formalities that happen before a match, exchanging of flags, exchanging of this, introduction of the team by the speaker at the stadium, all of that takes about approximately what, 50 minutes? Fans are sat down for a good 15, 20 minutes, half an hour before the actual players even come out. Now the players are out, there's other formalities, which probably take another 5 or so minutes. And then they kneel for 30 seconds. What sort of baboon hasn't got 30 seconds? What sort of creature?
Let's not use
language. I will use those words. And I have to, because they fired the first shots, Mike. And I hope you don't cut this out. I have to use those words because these people are uncivilized.
No, but what we need to do is try. You can use whatever language. Let me finish. You can use whatever language you feel is appropriate. I have a duty when I go on social media to be respectful of people. All I'm asking you to do is to use
Mike,
respectful language.
if it walks like a dog and talks like a dog, it's a dog. If you behave uncivilized and speak uncivilized and act uncivilized, you can be called any name under the planet. And at the moment, like we're saying, million people moving have called for a redefinition of racism. We need to redefine what racism is, so that we can start to change the mentality of sections of this crowd, Mike. I can show you a video clip of the top black football supporter, fan of this club that's standing behind me. A black guy who makes jokes and sings racist songs about blacks. So this is a club where if you're a supporter because you're local, you must be racist or be able to accept racist behavior to be a part of their community.
I note the point I hear you. I note the point you're making. Let's go
They're
back.
animals.
You're making. Let's go
They're
back.
animals.
Let's
They're
go
animals, as far as
back
I'm concerned.
Let's go back
They're
to
animals.
other possibilities to explain why people were booing. Is it possible that the reason why people are booing is because they disagree with Black Lives Matter as a political organisation?
That's their excuse.
Hold on, let me finish.
That's their excuse.
As a political organisation, and it was being politicised on Saturday. Is that a possibility?
That's a ridiculous. I know this is not your statement, Mike. I know you. I know you're asking questions, being a devil's advocate. So I am not taking it that that's your position. Okay, I promise you that. But that is such a lame excuse that the right wing have invented to excuse their lack of support for equality. That's all it is, Mike. Let's not, you know what, I think when the press, and I have a YouTube channel, so I'm in a way, I'm a member
Less of the advertising.
Listen, I'm not going there. Listen to what I'm saying to you. What I'm saying to you is I'm also a part of the press because I have a channel and I do interview people, okay? And what I'm saying to you is the press needs to stop this type of acknowledging rubbish, okay? Black Lives Matter, when we kneel for injustice, when we cry out for injustice, when we march for injustice, what we're actually doing is we're marching for human rights. Since when did the health of a country become human rights? Never been. It's never been human rights. The equality in a society should never be political. The only people who have politicized this are the right-wing political parties, the Republicans in America, the Tory party here, and your right-wing extremist groups, the Tommy Robinsons of this world. These are the only people who have turned this into a political statement.
Let's move on and let's talk about something you mentioned earlier, but the timing was wrong, about Cabinet Minister George Eustice. He has failed to condemn Millwall fans.
He did 2 interviews yesterday.
One on Sky News.
The first one on Sky News, which he absolutely did not want to condemn them. He was making the issue political. When someone kneels down, it's when a footballer dies, they wear armbands. Sometimes you have a 30-second or a minute silence, whatever the case might be. No one sees that as political. So why are we seeing the number of deaths that are still happening, mind you? They're still happening. 2 teenagers was just shot dead in America. Okay? Only about a week and a half ago. Maximum 2 weeks. These things are still ongoing in our countries. Why do we feel the need? Now, George Eustice done a first interview where, to me, that's the sort of interview that qualifies this person to be in the race offenders register.
We are coming to this race offenders register that you keep on
However, in his
mentioning.
second interview, just to finish this point, in his second interview, he then concedes slightly because of the criticism that he got. Now, we had the FA chief the other day use terms that were derogatory to black people and to people of color, because that's the term he used, okay? When we have our leaders, the Football Association leader and the top ranking staff, when we have these people that can't quite come to grips with what the fight actually means, we're in deep, deep trouble. And that's why, Mike, I've agreed to meet you out here today, because we've got to do something about it.